Greg Garza,
Good morning. It's been a minute.
one of the fastest and busiest men on the planet. It's like you're traveling north of borders, you're traveling north and south, and you're doing mentoring and you're taking care of those that you love that are close to you. You're a very, very busy man these days, sir.
I thought you were going to say the fattest.
No, that's me. That's me, cowboy.
Oh, man. I was like, man, I've been retired for some years now, but I hope I'm not there yet.
No, that's me. I'm a little further along in the driver's license than you, and no, that is me, sir.
How's everything going, man?
You tell me. I mean, it is. We can talk. We'll start it off by talking soccer and blend it into mentoring. It's a game 3 in a new playoff format for Atlanta United, having to go to a hostile environment. What have you thought about games 1 and 2 so far?
Is Columbus really hostile?
Eh, eh.
One of the first soccer stadiums that they used to have. Not anymore. They obviously upgraded. I don't know if it's a hostile environment though. Not the ones where I remember. Man, those fans sucked. Uh, now, if you tell me Red Bull or Philly or places like that, then I could agree with you.
Okay.
But no, I think there's a chance. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for this young team to show me consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's been the big question with them is that there are sparks and flames and so many different things within one game to where you say we're back, and then you have two stinkers of games right after, and it's like there's no medium. There's no. I'd like them to just play well every game. They don't have to give us like what they've given us this last game. Can they do something that is just within the consistent way of how we want them to play? That's my personal opinion on what this team has shown me this season.
Yeah.
And I wish they could find that consistency within because that's what you need in these playoff runs. You know, that's and to get far, you're not going to play another home game unless Kansas City makes it all the way through. So, you know, it's going to be a tough road to be on, always playing away.
When you're having conversations with your mentees about consistency and about environment, what are those conversations like? Because you mentioned consistency in an environment where it is playoff life. You either continue or you're done for the year and you're heading to the golf course for 6 weeks and you're plotting your Thanksgiving and your Christmas, which you don't want to do because that means you got to go out and shop. But when you have conversations with your mentees about pressure situations, about consistency of play, navigating all of those pressures, I guess for a multi-part question, what are these conversations like?
Well, first of all, I love the word consistency because most people view consistency as doing something at a high level for a really long time. And I disagree because I feel like you're not able to play at a high level every single game. Even the best of the best, they're not able to not able to play at a high level every single game. But there are things within your own personal and individual game that you are able to do on a consistent basis. And I think it's up to each and every player to understand what it is that they do, what they bring to the table, what they can contribute, and what role they can play in a consistent way. And so that's when I view the word consistency. Those are my thoughts. Not necessarily playing lights out every single game because you just can't. But I can take it back to my personal game. I tried to find myself in a game to be as open as I could be because I knew with time and space I could hit in a wicked cross with my left foot. And so that was one thing that was constantly on my mind. Another thing that was on my mind is that every time Yamil Assad or every time Barco or every time Miguel or every time whoever was on the left-hand side in that cup run or in the 17 run that we had, I was going to get an overlap in. And I think that's one thing that, you know, if people were to tell me today, say, man, I used to love watching you overlap and make runs every single game you were this engine over. And that was something that I knew every game that I played I could do on a consistent basis. Now, that's I think that's up to every individual on AU to understand. They don't have to be the savior. They don't have to be, you know, they don't have to be this guy that's going to have all the glory for themselves. But if they're able to kind of tune in on those individual battles with themselves, then I think that's what makes a consistent game. That's what makes a consistent player for me. If you are a player that makes great runs every single game, then that's all you should. That's all you should be looking for. You should do nothing else. You should not try and beat a player 1v1 because that's not something you are consistent in. And so, I think it comes down a lot to the individual to understand what role they play rather than team in those moments.
But I would imagine, at least at the beginning of that journey, to try to find consistency, you still have individuals that want to, for lack of a better word, they want to overreach. They want to still try and color outside the lines,
Yes.
and it takes a while to understand. A picture, a painting can still look fantastic. You don't have to paint outside the lines to make it look like Dali or Picasso. Ever a painting can still look pretty gorgeous if you just stick to what's there on the canvas.
I think that's why players play for so long, the guys who have figured it out. And I think you and I have this conversation before, is that I didn't necessarily enjoy watching as a pro. I didn't enjoy watching flashy players.
Yeah.
I would rather watch, and this is my personal opinion, I would rather watch Jeff Lorenowitz play 100 games rather than watch Thiago Almada play 100 games.
Huh.
Because Jeff Lorenowitz is going to be absolutely so consistent every single game. Thiago Almada scored this last game.
Yep.
Nobody's going to remember the game that he had, though. Right? It wasn't his best game. I don't think it was his best game at all. But he scored. And that's the flashy player within him. Now, for me, I enjoy, me personally, I enjoy watching guys that play with an experience of knowing the game, with the longevity of the experience, knowing that they can outlast every single minute that is played and play decent. They don't have to play the greatest. They don't have to be the flashiest player, but every single game they deliver. Every single game they're there. Their work ethic, their work rate, everything is just all in one. Their whole game encompasses just being a consistent player. And that's that. Whenever I was a player, those are the players that I like to study, because I told myself I want to be that player. I don't want to be the flashy player that's gonna change a game in a second. I want to be the industry player, the industrial player that's going to show up every single day, every single game, and is going to somehow make a valuable impact in a game. And I think more players should watch those types of players, because there are more players in the world these days of those types of players. There are very few Thiago Almadas. There are very few Joseph Martinez. There are very few Miguel Almirones in the league that can change the game within a second. But nobody remembers the rest of their game. Nobody really pays attention. If you really study soccer, if you really look at players in general, those are my types of players that I enjoy watching. But it all comes down to personal opinion, right? It's doesn't necessarily. Everybody's going to buy the other jersey. Everybody's going to buy the Almada jersey. Nobody's, well, people are going to buy the Larry jerseys, but it's
On a bet?
yeah.
I mean, well, and this comes to your point. Greg Garza hanging out with us for about another 10 minutes. Thomas Wrong on top of the hour. I've seen, and I think that, and it might be because Atlanta United fans got the chance to see you from the beginning of a franchise, Jeff from the beginning of a franchise, Parky from the beginning of a franchise, where they can get that appreciation of a guy like you that just marauds down the left-hand side and takes no prisoners and tries to be as consistent as possible. You get a guy like Jeff who will stand up to somebody from the Red Bulls and sit there and not worry about it. And he'll tower over somebody. And if you're coming after a teammate, Jeff will be the first one to hop in the pile. And I've literally seen more guys and more fans of Atlanta United since the franchise began want the Garza jersey, want the Lorenowitz jersey, and want the Parkhurst jersey because of that consistency and showing up every day and not backing down from a challenge and being there for your teammates.
I mean, I think if you look at that roster, right, I think at the end of the day, soccer is all about comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that roster, you had, and I don't even throw myself in the mix, but you have the Gressel, the Nagby, the Parkhurst, the Lorenowitz, and maybe that was 4 out of 5 out of the 11 that those guys, we were all going to deliver somehow, some way. Were we going to be the guys that made something happen in the game? Maybe not, but you knew you needed those guys to have a successful team. That's why I enjoy Atlanta United fans. Don't hate me for this.
Uh-oh.
I enjoy watching Philly play. I enjoy watching Philly play because they have that balance. They have the perfect balance of they have players that know their role and they're going to go in and they're going to do it every single game. And then they have a couple of players that can just, boom, change the game and within a millisecond. And from what I've seen this season is we have a lot of players that, like, one game you see them, you're like, holy crap, this guy is like unbelievable. And then it takes another 2 games to get to that super high level. And I want the median guys. I want the guys that are always gonna deliver.
You want the guys that are going to give you 7s and 8s every single time out on a scale of 1 to 10 instead of a 10, a 5, a 3, a 10.
Because as a fan, and this is speaking for all fans. How many games have you gone this year, even including myself as a fan, and said we're back? And then you watch the next game and you're like, maybe we're not. And then you go to the next game and you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell is happening? And then you go to the next game and you're like, man, this is the best I've seen us play in the last 5 years, right? And it's like you're constantly on this emotional roller coaster. And so it's as a fan, I think there's a high chance. It's just up to these guys within, when's the game? The game's Sunday
night.
It's up to them on what. It's almost this is like, I feel like whenever I speak to my son who's 10 and we speak to coaches sometimes, like it's whoever wakes up on that given day, it's whoever wakes up on that given day is going to win that U11 game. And it's like some days you watch your U11 team play or U11 son play and you're like, wow, this kid's got it. And then the next day he just doesn't bring it. And it's kind of like that. I feel like that's kind of been what we've seen this year from a fan perspective, from a mentor perspective, and from a coach perspective. You got to find that consistency, and I think that's when you need those experienced players to come in and kind of gather the troops and have someone. And I feel we're missing an Ozzie Alonso to be in there every single game. We're missing somebody with a ton of experience to kind of just gather the troops and help them understand that consistency part. But once again, it's all about comparisons. It's all about opinions. Everything is subjective.
When you're a mentee, and when you were giving advice to your mentees about consistency, are there generational disconnects where, say, even maybe a 5 or a 10-year age gap where you understand the value of consistency? You have learned the hard way being a competitive athlete worldwide. You've learned the value of consistency and trying to stay at 7s and 8s. For players who are slightly younger than you and then your mentees, do they have those same connections and same levels of understanding, or do you find that a certain demo is chasing after glory and it's like, man, I want to just chase after being an A+ and then accept the F and then I level out at being a C? I mean, do you have age groups that are different when it comes to understanding consistency?
I would say it's a massive generational change to where everybody wants to be that saving hero, um, that savior of the game rather than the gladiator.
Yeah.
And I feel like I try and help kids understand being more of the gladiator rather than the game changer,
Right.
because I think whenever I became a left back, I'd never defended in my whole entire life. And I played number 10 and I played left wing, and whatever team you put me on, I would perform, and I would be the game changer, and I would be be the go-to guy as a kid, until I became a pro. And I just remember that coach sitting down with me and saying, Greg, there are very few game changers that are successful. Very few game changers. Look at Messi's interview with Zidane he just did the other day for Adidas. How many number 10s do we have left in the world? Maybe a handful. There's
Yeah.
got to be less than 5 number 10s that you can name and be like, these guys are absolute creators and guys that can change the game within a second. And although I think Miguel played the perfect 10 role here in Atlanta United, he does not play the 10 role in Newcastle.
Right.
So he's become that hard worker, gladiator. He's become the guy that still can change a game within a second, but his role has changed. And so, that's why I think providing that information and showing these kids the benefit of being that guy is so much more valuable for them in the future. Because I think when you have that versatility of mindset and kind of that flexible and open mind as well, it allows you. Let's talk real. Like these kids being in a corporate building one day, or they're being in whatever they do in the future. That's going to be so valuable to them to be that absolute hard worker, and not because I feel like a lot of the game changers and a lot of the guys who they're extremely emotional. They're people that are always they're either up, or it's like, or all hell is broken.
Yeah. You've crashed or you're succeeding at
Yes.
It's the hundreds and
Yes.
zeros.
And so many kids have that. So many kids that I see, they have that mentality. It's one game they played absolutely amazing and they absolutely rocked it. And then the next game, it's, oh my gosh, that was the worst game I ever played. I'm terrible. It's the word we started with today. The word consistency is on so many levels within everything. It is within performance. It is within mindset. It is within, creating good habits and, doing these things. And we had this really cool conversation. I don't know if I've talked to you since, but that's really good conversation with the head scout of U.S. Soccer. We did talk about this or no?
No, we have not. No.
Yeah. And I guess before I go, we talked about this is just a snippet of everything. And I won't give it away because I use this with my mentees a lot.
There you go.
But we call them the 4 selves. And all I was doing while he was talking, I was just writing down what he was saying. And although he didn't create it into an exercise, I did. And he talked about elite personalities and elite players. They have self-belief, self-discipline, self-assessment, and self-regulation. And I was like, man, he's so right. Elite players and elite personalities, no matter what we do in life, if we're playing soccer every day, if we're doing this every day, you always have to believe in yourself. You have to be disciplined. Do you make your bed every single day? Because that's going to transfer into whatever else you do. And so I've been asking a lot of my mentees lately, hey, do you make your bed every day? You'd be surprised, 8 out of 10 kids, what they say.
Consistency.
Yeah. And so, it's once again, you just go back to creating good habits, the word consistency, or the self-assessment, not blaming others, but just looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, hey, that guy didn't do this today. What can I do better? And then the self-regulation. Once we go back to the controlling behaviors and controlling your emotions. So that was really interesting listening. I mean, we probably talked to him for about an hour and a half, Parky and I had to go pick up my kids from school. Parky had to go to another meeting, and we could have probably talked to him like for 3 hours. But it was interesting to see because this guy has discovered so many players and he's seen so many players. And that's like when I look back and I think about, wow, all the elite players, the experienced players, the Jeff Larinowitz, the Michael Parkers, the guys that outlasted so many people, they always had those four things, no matter what. Didn't matter the caliber or level of player they were within that team. They had those four things, and that's why they were great pros. That's why they were great people. But yeah, wanted to finish on that.
No doubt. Well, thanks as always, and thanks for crashing in as always on the Friday Free Kick, Greg. Great to catch up with you, my friend. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. What's your prediction, man, for Sunday?
They'll take it. I think it's 2-1. I think it's messy. It probably it's going to be a chippy game. I think it's going to go 2-1 Atlanta.
This is my before I this is like I just don't understand why we sat back that first game. I don't understand why we were on that defensive. Now I think is the game to play like that, because you never know what. Now it's to be conservative. I feel like in these first two games, man, especially in the first one, we should have played like two in the back. We should have gone old school, played two in the back, and just play seven or eight forwards. And like, because at the end of the day,
I see how this works.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so, it's it'll be interesting, because now it's a true chess match. You're not in the cathedral the first game, in the second game. So it'll be interesting to see.